Hi guys, welcome back to another video. If you're new here, I'm Helen from Crafty So and So. If you're not new here, welcome back. Thank you for joining me on this video. Make sure you give this video a like so then other people who also might be interested in sewing and making their own sewing patterns can find this video and find something that will help them. So within this tutorial we are going to be looking at how we are taking a basic t-shirt from our wardrobe and creating a sewing pattern from it. This is really simple to do. You need very minimal tools and something you can do today. For this tutorial I'm going to be showing you first of all the tools that you're going to need. First of all, the most important is your t-shirt. I chose a t-shirt that I already wear. It's quite cute. It's got a little cat on and some little like sewing things like a tape measure and pins. This t-shirt I got from Uniqlo quite a few, maybe about a year or two ago now. It's one of my favourite t-shirts. I like the style and the fit. So this is one that I chose to use to create the sewing pattern so then I could create this shape again. I would choose one that you like wearing already, that's all in a good condition, good shape. Some t-shirts can kind of get a little like misshapen with the wash, but if you've got one that's still in very good condition, quite like the seams haven't gone askew or anything, then use that one. Or if you know a brand of t-shirt that you like, you can always get a fresh one, so then you know that everything is in the shape and style that you like it as it is, and then use that as your template. Another thing we're going to use is a ruler. I've just got this quilting ruler, but you can use any ruler that you've got available. This is just my favourite one, so this is the one I use. You might need some pins. If you don't want to use pins, you can also use sewing clips. These are just a box of Clover Wonder clips, but you can use any that are on the market. Also have a video about these, reviewing them. If you want to check that out, I'll leave the links in the description below. And finally, your paper. So I've just got this, I've had this for years now and I'm still going through it. It was just a roll from IKEA, just, normal plain paper. You can get it on eBay and Amazon. I think you could even find it in Hobbycraft and places like that. So or I've seen a handy trick that people have been using the wrong side of wrapping paper, so the plain side, which is fine as well. Anything that you've got available, use that. So before you get started, the most important thing is to make sure that your t-shirt has been ironed. That is because we are working from the seams. So the seams at the side need to be nice and crisp and clear. As you can see, though I'm probably messing it up now. I've ironed my t-shirt to make sure that everything is nice and flat, ready for us to fold it and create the template. So I'm going to start by rolling out my paper. Because it's at the end of the roll, I'm just going to use some weights on one end, just so that it doesn't go anywhere while I'm filming. There we go, that should be fine. So once you've got your paper laid out, just make sure it's nice and smooth. There's nothing on there that you don't want on your t-shirt. The most important thing I'm going to do is join the side seams. So these two seams that run down. So all you want to do is fold it in half lengthways. So the most important thing is that you're matching up these edge seams here. Just make sure it's all smoothed out. You've got no major like wrinkles or anything. So make sure you're joining every single seam up to the armhole here. Smooth down. Make sure you've got no wrinkles whatsoever. Make sure each seam connects. This is where you can pin, so you could put a pin just through this section here and further down and down, but I'm not going to do that just because I obviously want to be able to wear this t-shirt again. So I'm just going to use some clips. So clipping in place will just help keep the seams together while you're moving the fabric around. So just make sure everything is smooth as you go. like so. If you've got a few little wrinkles inside, that doesn't matter too much, because as long as you've got the basic shape. And then move up to the neckline. Move up to the neckline, and you want to make sure that the binding here on each side is connected. So if you push them together, make sure that shoulder seam here, they are flush together like the side seam, and just clip them in place. Make sure you've smoothed out all your wrinkles, just because you don't want an odd shape once you're done. So you can do the same for the sleeves, match them up right till the tip here, and do the same on the underneath here. It's really easy to do because you'll just be matching the seams here on the, you'll see the line, the seam line. If you've done a little bit of sewing already, you'll know what to look for. Obviously that won't sit flush because it's not meant to. Some of them will, depending on the style, but mine doesn't. But that's not a thing to worry about just right now. So the first part, so the next bit is you will need a pen or a pencil. I'm using a coloured Sharpie just so then you can see the colours more defined on the pattern, and you can see where I'm marking. So first of all, you want to start at the neckline. As you can see, there's going to be like a little ribbing, a little binding on the top. You don't want to be marking that. You want to be marking at the very point that it joins here. I'll try and lift it up a little so you can see. So you don't want to be noting this line, but this line here. I'll show you that as we go. You just want to put a little line like so. Just got to make sure it doesn't smudge on. And you want to do the same at the bottom. Do the same again at the bottom here. Remember that this will not include seam allowance, so once you've created this pattern, you'll want to add at least a 1/4 inch seam allowance. If you're new to sewing and you're not sure that that'll be enough, add 1/2 inch, and then you can always cut down the seam when you're ready. Again, when you come to the shoulder, at the top here, at the top of the neckline to the shoulder, you want to be marking the seam that joins the binding to the actual t-shirt. That's where we need to be marking. So when it comes to the sleeve, you're going to be leaving the sleeve as separate because you can see that it has a seam here, so that is a separate piece. So when you get to the top of your shoulder here by the join of the arm, you want to be marking that part. Same again, if you follow along, you'll see the seam end, and right under the armpit area, you want to be creating a mark. So that is all your main points have got a mark. So then if I simply fold this back, you can see we've got our lines. I'm going to use the ruler, nice and straight, to connect those. Like so. So that will be your centre front. You'll also cut this on the fold. Because you don't want to have a seam down the middle of your t-shirt. So moving that back, I can then create the bottom seam, the bottom hem, by just using the ruler again and matching those up. Because these are straight, you can use the ruler to create a nice clean edge. Again, you don't have to put anything on that one because that is just how it is. So then the next one we're going to be marking is this last straight seam here. Oh, we've got a straight there. So the next one we're going to be doing is from the bottom of the armhole to the hem. We'll just tuck that back and mark that in. So all I want to check is that my t-shirt is wider at the bottom than it is here, so I'll be tapering that in just slightly so to give it the accurate fit. If your t-shirt doesn't flare, that's fine. Some of them are quite boxy, some of them aren't, and so that's that in. So now you can see that we're starting to create the pattern. Put it back in place just so then you've got every point, you're confident that everything's fitting where it should. And the next thing we're going to do is the top of the shoulder here. So we've marked both parts, so we'll just join those with the ruler again. And sometimes I just like to name these because you know then kind of which way things up. It might look a bit obvious, but if you're a beginner and you're not so sure, mark these seams as you would know them. So if you would call this the shoulder seam, put it as the shoulder seam. You know, if this is the side seam, put it as the side seam, and so on. That way you can start picking up different terminology, you can start learning more about the different seams of a garment, and it just makes you feel a bit more comfortable when you come back to using the pattern later on. So the next seam we're going to be doing is a little bit trickier. We don't need a ruler for this one, we just need a nice steady hand. We're going to be marking in the curve just here. So we're going to be folding back each bit by bit. I'm going to be using a biro for this one just so I don't mark my actual t-shirt. So you're going to be folding back, creating a little mark each as you go along. So you want to be paying attention to that seam there. This here, as you can see, the join between the fabric of the t-shirt and the ribbing for the neckline. And that should match up nicely. So if I fold that back, you can see I've created a dotted line of where the neckline sits. So I'm going to just use my pen to mark that in as a solid line, just by joining them up like so. So then you'll know that that's your neckline, and on top of that you'll have the ribbing if you choose to use so. Folding the t-shirt back, the next one we're going to have to do, and the final one, is the armhole, and then we'll be moving on to the sleeve. So very much like how you did the neckline, you want to be doing for the armhole. Might be a bit trickier because the sleeve itself is a bit thicker, but I'll show you now how we can achieve that. So I'm going to be starting at the bottom here, folding that back so it sits along the seam. So I'm pushing it, I'm manipulating the fabric to be where I want it to be, and I'm just simply sitting my pen next to the seam to create the arm. So I'm going right next to the edge of the seam where it's marked. So mine's come out just a little longer. I think I've shifted slightly, only slightly, but that's fine. So then if I move this back, you can see we've got a gradual sleeve there. I'll mark this in so it's a bit clearer. You can use the curved ruler to create this so it's a bit smoother, but just drawing it bit by bit, dot to dot by hand is fine. So this is your arm. 4. And there you go. So then we've got the, so if I move this out of the way, there you can see you have your completed t-shirt pattern. So this is obviously is just the bodice part. So you can, for me, I would write that this is the front bodice t-shirt UK 14. So write the size if it's an extra large women's, UK 14. Mine is a UK 14, so that's what I've wrote on. So then when you come to make this again, you've got the relevant information. So before we move on from the t-shirt, you want to be doing the neckline at the back. You can create a whole separate piece for this, or you can simply put your t-shirt back on, line everything up, and as you can see from the ribbing here, there's an extra section. This is your actual back piece. So you can do the same again. So I'm going to use a separate colour pen for this part. Use that green. And I'm going to use my biro again just to mark in. So just follow up. So if I use the ruler just to follow up the line to make it nice and smooth, like so. Biro didn't work then. There we go. And then again you do the same. So I'm going to use this seam here, if you can see, and I'm just going to mark on then the back neck. So there, there, there. So then if you can see, I've got a dotted line there. This is the back. So I'm going to mark it in a different colour. You can make this again in the same, do the same process, but turn your t-shirt the other way around, so then you get in the back instead of the front. That might be a bit easier for some people, so they can create 2 templates, whereas I've just created the one. And then that would be the back. Like so. So then you've got one separate line for your front neckline, and then you've got a separate for the back neckline. So again, you just want to lay your t-shirt on. Make sure now you want to make sure that the sleeve itself is flat to the paper. So make a little ruffle if you need to, fold that out of the way like so. So that is completely flat. There's nothing in my way there. Again, I'm just going to use a pen. We're going to mark on the major points. So we're going to mark under the sleeve again, where the armpit is. Pretty much just where this red clip is. We're going to mark there. At this point here. Again at this point at the top. And the top of the arm where the shoulder meets. So once you've made your marks, you can see I've done little notches just there and there. So I'm going to mark up my first, which is first line using my ruler. This is the end of the sleeve, so this would be hemmed. So make sure to remember that when you are adding your seam allowances. So that's the first one in. Next I'm going to do this longer one at the top for the shoulder. So then that's the next one in, and then you've got the one at the bottom. I'm going to draw this in because it's not completely flat, it does have a small curve. So I'm just going to mark along each section with a little notch. I've got a clip out just so I can get a bit of more accuracy. So as you can see, I've created that dotted line. I'm just going to use my pen to just go from notch to notch to join that in to make a nice solid line. So you can cut, you know, you can label this as like sleeve hem. And then once you've done your armhole, we can mark that in. So as you've already marked your notch at the bottom here, as you can see, you've got your notch there, you've got your notch at the top here. You want to make sure that everything stays in place, because we're going to be folding your t-shirt to this side now, so then you can follow that line to create the armhole that will then match the armhole on your t-shirt. So let's make sure everything stays in place and gently just fold it back to get to that seam. So if I move that fully away, put that back on so you can really see. So as you can see, my sleeve does a small curve. So it's got a large curve and then goes in a little more at the base, which is what I've managed to capture on my pattern. So I'm going to join that in. Nice smooth join. And then this will be the armhole. And you can put like on your sort of pattern, you'll often see that they'll have two triangles or just a single triangle. This is where the pieces join. So the actual other piece, your bodice part, would have two triangles at the same point to match, and then that gives you a nice indication of where the pieces should be lining up together. Again, make sure you add your relevant information. So I've put UK 14 sleeve short, t-shirt pattern. You can also add the date in which you created it, but I don't often put that on. I don't feel like it's necessary. As long as everything size wise is on there and what it actually is, that's fine with me. So there you have it, your t-shirt sewing pattern. Thank you for joining me on this tutorial. I hope you found this useful. I hope this has been something that you can use this afternoon, today, tomorrow, this week, or even in the future. I think this is something that even a beginner can do, and it can really help you gain confidence in the sewing room going forward. If you've liked this video, please give it a like, share it with friends, family, other people who you like sewing, and make sure you subscribe because I will be doing plenty more videos like this in the future.